We'll begin with Mr. Mahn, and the first question for the candidates, and you have 3 minutes, and the first question is, how do you stand, or how will you stand on preserving Medicare and Social Security for our citizens?
I am so glad that's your first question, because that is a top priority for me. Absolutely. Social Security, Social Security has been robbed. It's time to put money back into Social Security. They've been taking money out of Social Security, and it's time to put that money back. Medicare and Social Security, I'm going to fight to make solvent for the next 100+ years. I want to just get it off the table. They use this as a scare tactic and everything else, and it's time that we take care of that and we make those solvent for the next 100+ years. One of the ways I would like to do that is, you know, when you see money being sent to Egypt or Libya or all these other places, every time I see that on television or hear about it, I think, let's put that back in Social Security. You know, let's build that account back up. And so I will fight tooth and nail for our Social Security and Medicare recipients and make sure that the government is not taking money out of those. We want to keep them solvent and we want to take care of those folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mahn. Ramona, you're next.
Thank you. Okay, just like Mr. Mann said, Social Security, the trust fund needs to be, it's being rated by the general expenses. We need to continue the gradual raising. I know we don't like to hear this, but to continue the gradual raising of the age of retirement. Because Social Security, if we don't do something, is not going to be here for my children, for my grandchildren. That's a hard thing to accept, saying, I mean, right now, I can't draw Social Security at 65. I can't draw it till I'm 67. And there's a possibility I won't even be able to draw it till I'm 70. That's not fair, but that's one of the things that's probably going to happen in order to make the Medicare and Social Security solvent again. Also, Mark says continue the gradual raising of the retirement age in light as our lifespan increases. But you know, one of the things too, we need to fight age discrimination in the workforce, because so many times people that are in their late 50s and 60s are discriminated against by the workforce. We also need to gradually raising the maximum income level for the Social Security tax to apply. Keep our economy strong so that employment remains high and more people pay into the Social Security system without lengthy breaks for periods of unemployment. Simple plan. It's not something that all of us want to hear, but the main thing is we've got to keep Social Security from being rated to pay general expenses. That's not what it was there for. That's not what it was started for. It wasn't put into effect to pay our government expenses. It was put there for me and you for when we retire. And right now, there's a big possibility that it's not going to be there because the government has their hands in it to pay other things. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Markel. Representative Black, 3 minutes, please.
Okay, to answer the question on Social Security and Medicare, for Social Security, it's first important to make sure that we have a strong middle class that is paying into Social Security. 2, that the government keeps its hands off of Social Security other than the dedicated purpose for which Social Security was set up. And another avenue that I'm always looking for is wasteful spending in government or fraud, and we need to look at the Social Security disability benefits and make sure that only those people who are truly disabled are receiving those benefits, so that those who are retiring and approaching retirement age will have that income for them. They paid in, they worked all their life, but we have too many people who are receiving disability benefits that shouldn't be doing that, so cut out fraud in the program. Medicare, I hold a Medicare enrollment program every fall for my senior citizens in my district, and I see that it is important that we hold the insurance industry to accountability so that we can finally have some transparency in our health care cost, so that when you go to the doctor in St. Louis or Viburnum or Kansas City or Chillicothe, that your doctor is charging you appropriately for the services that you're getting, and that you're being consistent, that they're being consistent and transparent in their fees, because there are doctors through this program who are charging too much for those services in some areas and just barely getting by in others. So I think transparency in our health care, holding the insurance to accountability, and then our health care costs can go down, and we can make sure that Medicare is able to be solvent. So I am a strong proponent of Medicare. I think it is very important. I have a constituency service in my district to make sure those people are getting the best plan for them, and I would continue that on into Washington, D.C. if so be. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Dr. Rushin.
Well, we've definitely had a problem in the past with the federal government coming in and taking money out of Social Security. And, of course, that has to stop. And I agree with Mr. Mann that we need to get that funded. It needs to be kept healthy. It is something that has allowed our senior citizens, Social Security, to live in dignity, and when they pass on, to even give a nest egg of so-called money or inheritance to their children. And without it, and without Medicare, to help them through the later years of life and sometimes a long hospitalization, most people would lose everything they have. On Medicare, Medicare does a pretty good job in many instances of cost containment, sometimes better than the actual private sector of hospitals. Insurance. But the issue is that there still is a lot of waste, and they have to retool and redevelop how they can reduce that waste. Because if they can really get rid of some of the rampant waste that occurs in certain sectors of healthcare, then it's going to save money and make it more solvent and make it more balanced on the books. So those are the things that we need to do. And as our economy gets greater and employment returns back, we're going to have people coming off of Medicaid, and that's also going to help reduce the amount of outflow that we have. So if we do those measures, I think it'll answer a lot of the needs. It is going to be an uphill road, and it will be a tough thing to change.
Dr. Rushin, you can stay there. We'll start with you on this one. Our next question is, what can be done in Congress to help the economy in Missouri's 8th District? Be as specific as you can, please. 3 minutes.
Well, one of the things I think that needs to be looked at is we have to create an environment as much as possible to bring jobs, bring manufacturing back into our area. And that can be done with incentives to corporations, tax incentives, and such things as that. But at the same time, when we deal with things like any of the NAFTA and CAFTA type of agreements with other countries and throughout the globe, we really have to ask ourselves, how is it going to affect us long term? How is it going to do that? With education, a lot of new jobs are going to take place in technology. So going to what Representative Black said, we need to have good education for our students and our children in the 8th District, so that when the call comes and these jobs are available, when these plants come into our district, that we have a job pool that can go in and work it. Because right now, for many of these technology plants, we don't have that. And other than that, we need to do all we can to enhance the production and the increased productivity of agriculture, because that is going to be the #1 economic engine of the 8th District for years and years to come. We need to try to improve tourism and get as much dollars we can out of that in the 8th District. But if we can do manufacturing and improve agriculture and improve tourism, it's going to help balance the scale.
Thank you. Representative Black.
To encourage economic prosperity in the 8th Congressional District, I think it's important that we look at some of the failures in the district before. We take a look at the Wholesome Cement plant, which is now up and running and is a success, but we look at the red tape that company had to go through in order to open the plant. It took 7 years. It took EPA one after another obstacle to overcome. While we were fighting for 7 years to get one plant that was going to employ hundreds of people making good pay per hour, a pay that they can raise their families on, China opened 200 cement plants while we got one open. So I think that we have to make sure that we're able to get some regulations lifted that are nonsense so that our businesses can thrive and so that the industry can be able to expand without government regulation in the 8th Congressional District. I think it's important in the other regard of EPA. We have the levee situation where we're wanting to shore up the levee, but we have wetland issues that is fighting fish and wildlife versus farmers in the Boot Hill. We need to have some sense whenever it comes to, do we need to eat or do the birds need to eat? And I think we need to say that we are the breadbasket of America, and we're the breadbasket of the world, and we need to make sure that we're allowing our farmers to utilize their farmland to the best of their ability. I think manufacturing is something that we can try to attract, but we have to look to the jobs of the future. Whenever we look to the jobs of the future, we have to look at how to educate our children to compete globally for those jobs, to provide them a good education here at home so that they can be competitive in the future. There are lots of things that we can do as Congress or as the state legislature to help business grow, but the one thing that we have to do is allow those business people to come to the table and tell us what they need in order to make their business and industry thrive. And so I think that open door policy of hearing from your business leaders, them telling us how best they can run their business, them telling us what's restrictive or hindering their ability to have a successful business to thrive, I think it's all in listening and then taking that message to Congress and making the changes once those discussions have taken place. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Ms. Markel. Sorry, Ms. Fitchpatrick.
Ramona.
Ramona, very well.
Mark says that we need to help small businesses and farmers, that is the key to the 8th District. We need to eliminate overregulation. We need to balance the budget to restrain eventual inflation. Don't increase taxes on small businesses. Provide incentives for hiring regarding, i.e., tax credits or new equipment, and don't punish capital gains. And we need to create an energy policy to keep fuel costs down. Mark's been in the HVAC business for over 40 years, and during those years, when he first started, there was 30 HVAC manufacturers in the United States. Believe it or not, there's only 4 now. And Nordyne being one of those that's located here in Poplar Bluff. But says Nordyne, it makes a good product, but they, like other remaining manufacturers, are finding it harder and harder to compete with the low-priced equipment that's coming out of Japan and China. And if you look, ladies and gentlemen, when you go into the stores, almost everything we pick up is made in China, made in Japan, Indonesia, or whatever. The loss of manufacturing didn't happen overnight, and it's going to take many years before we can solve this problem. Like I said, it's not going to be solved overnight. It will take many years to fix. We have to start at home by trying to change the buying habits of the American people. American people must change from wanting to buy the best price and instead want to buy durable goods made by U.S. manufacturers. We have a little company in Sikeston, Missouri called Slushers. I love going into that business. It's family owned. You go in and they have everything you need. And you get personal service. And Slushers has been there for as long as I can remember. Mark's company that he works for is 130 years old. They are family owned, 5th generation. They don't sell the cheapest, but they do make a profit, and what they do is offer service with their company. But we're going to have to change the buying habits of us and look to buy what's made here, not Japan, not Taiwan. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fitzpatrick. Mr. Mann.
Thank you. I agree with a lot of what the other candidates said, so I'm not going to reiterate that. But what I would do is I would fight for federal dollars to bring back to this district. And I will fight for every dime of that I can get for this district to bring back here. If there's going to be a federal building built or any facility at all, I want it here in this district. And let me tell you what, if we change this district from red to blue, don't think we won't have the president's ear. I will have his ear. I will work hard, I will have his ear, and I'll bring those dollars here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mann. Now, I'm told by the chair that it's time to wrap up, and each candidate will have an opportunity for 3 minutes to wrap up everything they've spoken about this evening. So let's start again with Mr. Mann, and we'll go right down the list. 3 minutes to wrap up.
Thank you, Senator. Again, I would like to thank this committee. This has been an honor to come here this evening and stand in front of you. I just wish my father was with me. He passed away when I was 14, and I felt like he was running co-pilot today with me, and then when I see our opening remarks is going to be 5 minutes instead of 3, well, then I got to talk a little more about my family and include him, so I appreciate that, because he was definitely my inspiration. This is the best opportunity that we've had in a long time. We can win this race. We need to stop the gridlock in Washington. There will be times when we have to work across the aisle, and I can do that. I did that in Jeff City. I spent nearly 6 years on my state board there, and I chaired it for 2 of those years. And there were things I was told that with the act of God, you would not be able to get done. And you know what? We got those things done. When I went over to that Capitol and I worked with senators and lawmakers and state reps, I didn't look on their door to see if there was an R or D. I went there with my plan and what I wanted to finish and what I wanted to accomplish, and we got it done. And I'm proud to say that in them 6 years, we got more done in the history of that board, and it was the first board ever in this state, and I'm very happy about that. I also think we need to pass a long-term bill for farmers. You know, if we get out of the way of farmers and let them do what they do best, you know, they don't need the federal government meddling that much in their business. But let's get a long-term bill passed for those farmers. You know, as I like to say, farm to market. I would also like to say that we're going to have to balance the budget. I think we need to get this budget balanced, and once we do that, or start doing that, and when I say do it, I don't mean have it complete, but I mean get the ball rolling, get it started. That's going to open up for us to do more with the federal dollars to get them here to this 8th district. In closing, I'd like to say that our campaign team will be the best campaign team this state has ever seen. We will fight hard. We will work 24/7. We will amass the biggest team you've ever seen in this district, and Republicans will not know what hit them. We will take this district back to blue. And with the help of this committee and all of you, we can make this happen. Again, I'd like to thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Mann. Ms. Fitchpatrick.
We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common sense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity, do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America. This one sentence, this preamble to the Constitution, provides the basis for what I believe any representative or senator in Congress should follow as their guidelines in writing or passing any law of the land. We, the people, we need to send our representatives to Washington, and they have the best intentions. As a representative, we need to take care of those intentions, which in turn will take care of our constituents, the people in the 8th District whom we are representing. Republicans locked in the camp and Democrats locked in the other. No one wants to talk, no one wants to compromise or make a bad decision, so they don't make any decision. We have to break down the walls of the behavior, get people talking and compromising on solutions to our nation's problems. No one group has all the answers. Congress needs to get along in order to move along. Union. I believe a strong union begins at home. It's not how much we try to teach our children, it's how much they learn. We need to teach them moral character, honesty, empathy, and sacrifice. Too many people want government to solve all their problems instead of relying on themselves and their family and traditional Midwest values. There are people who cannot solve their own problems and need help from families or church affiliations or the local and state and federal agencies. We must recognize that fact, but it should be the exception, not the rule. Justice. Justice for all means the opportunity to work hard and be rewarded for your efforts. Rewards should not be handed out without, and Mark uses this phrase, nilly-willy, without individual efforts by those capable of providing for themselves. Justice does not mean everyone will have the same, but they have the same opportunities as everyone else. Mark says, I believe that our Constitution is an outline of how we are to conduct ourselves. As for me and my house, I will continue to serve my family, my church, and if allowed, the people of the 8th District. Just like Mr. Mann said, I think the Democrats have a wonderful opportunity to take the 8th District back. 32 years of Emerson name has not gotten the 8th District anywhere. And with the help of everyone, regardless of who you nominate as your candidate, each one of us needs to get out and campaign for that Democrat candidate, and we need to take over the 8th District. It needs to become a Democrat. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fitchpatrick. Ms. Black.
First of all, thank you again for coming, and I appreciate you sitting through and listening to our responses and making your decisions in the upcoming weeks. If I were to never represent the 8th Congressional District as your congressperson, I want you to know that just the fact that we do still have Democrats in the 8th Congressional District that still believe in God and country. We still have Democrats out there who are conservative in their stance, who are those who want to negotiate and talk and compromise. Is if we take nothing else from me from this conversation today, I want you to know that it is still possible that the Democrats can rise again. It is possible when we get our message out. And if I'm going to stand on a soapbox ever, it's going to be now. Democrats, we have got to take back our message. I'm pro-life. I stand up for the Second Amendment. I'm fiscally conservative, and I love my God. And He's always ruled my life and helped me in every endeavor I've ever had. So Democrats, if nothing else, let the Republicans, sorry, Mr. Justice, let them know that we are good, American, red-blooded people who deserve to have our voices heard in the State House, in Congress, and everywhere in between, and don't let them tell everyone who we are. You go tell everybody who we are as Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Dr. Rushin.
You know, he starts the clock as soon as you call the name. So.
No, I don't.
Okay. Well, one of the things, going back to why I want to be involved in the process and why I want to run for this position, goes back to conversations I've had with my good friend Michael Jackson. That we need civility in politics, and we absolutely do need civility in politics. It doesn't have to be mean-spirited. It doesn't have to be who's going to get you, who's going to say this, or who's going to say that. We need to move things forward. We need to do that by deductive reasoning and consciousness and by common sense. You know, when I ran, I was running against Joanne, and to just remind everybody, when Joanne came in and Paul Ryan came in the latter part of the 90s, they served the entire time of the Bush administration. Now, we had an ecosystem prior to the Bush administration, an ecosystem in such a way that we had ample revenue coming in to match expenditures going out. It was balanced to such a degree that we had a surplus after he left office. Now, regardless who was president or who was in charge of the House or who was in charge of the Senate, the fact of the matter is we had an ecosystem. We had a balance of revenue coming in and a balance of spending going out. But when Bush came in, they wanted to reinvent the wheel. When they wanted to correct the mousetrap. So they had an idea that they could have tax cuts and the revenue and that would increase the economy and balance the cuts. But at the same time, they spent. And the two representatives I mentioned were front row and center and voted for every spending bill he wanted. Now, what that did, when you had the increased spending and the reduced revenue, is where we're at today. So we need to focus on the things that works, and we need to work forward toward that. The important thing is, as far as I'm concerned, is that we do the things that are necessary. We need to go back to the golden generation. They did things when they needed to be done, when they needed to be done, whether they liked it or not.
1 minute.
And that's what we need to do. I also agree we need to buy American. I gave a talk one time on healthcare issues to the UAW, retired UAW people here in Poplar Bluff. And when I pulled into the venue site, there was over 100 cars there. And I had this interest to see how many of those cars were imports. Not one single car was import. There were Ford Chevys. They were cars made in the USA. That really impressed me. I addressed that to them when I met with them. But these are the things we have to get back to. Common sense, working together as a team with our people across the aisle. And that's what I'm going to promote. Thank you very much for your time today.